Hey, it's MK, and I am here with another 31 days of cut files with MK and Janet. And today we are doing Friday, the 8th, which means we have this burst. And this burst is actually meant to be a background. Now, you can definitely cut it a little bit smaller. Might be a little trickier on your machines, depending on what machine you have. But it can be cut down just a little bit, and then you can add more bursts on one page. And I'm also playing along with Mixed Media Mayhem and this very bright and colorful painting that someone has created. So I pulled out my Vicky Bouton watercolor paints, and because I can't really tell what color they are on the little palette, I am going to use this little dish here and paint out each color so I can see what color they actually are, because what looks like red actually is a fuchsia, and what looks like brown is actually like a rust. So there it is. And I am just going to jump right in to the process of getting this painted so that way I can come back and have a nice dry piece. Sometimes when I am doing something watercolory, mixed media-y, or anything like that, I really just want to jump into my idea as opposed to share with you guys all of the supplies and things that I'm going to be using and you know, the whole process that I usually do at the beginning of a video. Usually when I just want to make a mess, I just want to get started making the mess. So that's what I'm doing here. Here I'm sharing with you guys that I ripped my watercolor, like it's just tape that I got with a watercolor set. So I don't know exactly if it's just masking tape or what kind of tape it is. So far I haven't had any issues with it ripping any of my paper, but just letting you know that I do rip mine in half so that way I have a jagged edge rather than a straight edge from my paintery mess. Also, another thing too is that this is just whatever cardstock we used for cutting out the cut files. I did not recut this cut file on watercolor paper. It is in all purposes just the same exact as what you guys got. I think it is called My Colors from Photoplay. That is the paper that we used since Close to My Heart went out of business. I apologize. So I'm starting with my colors. At first I wasn't sure on which blue. There's like a violet blue, I guess, or a purpley blue, and then a bright blue, and then of course a purple. But I feel like my colors are muddy. I have my two waters next to myself, or up on the right, and I honestly just feel like my watercolors are uber muddy. But I'm gonna go with it, and I want it to look like the color is being burst out of this, like almost like it's a firecracker. But I'm not doing firework photos, I promise. But then I also did not space this out enough to plan for any of the warm colors. So right now I'm just working with all of the cool colors. And then there's that green right there that I probably could have done without because it's a little on the mossy side. It doesn't really go. Now here's where I'm saying it's very muddy. That is a very vibrant yellow. On my dish it is very vibrant, but here it's almost like dirty water. So I really couldn't get it to come out vibrant, so I moved on to the next yellow that I had. And then I have, I want to say 2 oranges. I'm not really sure. But as you can see, my paper is really truly soaking up the water, and I definitely have to keep either misting it with the water that I have on my left, or I have to totally saturate this water in order to play with the colors. And that could be why my colors are muddy, is because the paper isn't meant for all of this water. It is definitely soaking it up faster than I can paint it. But I'm okay with that because I just want it to look like a bursted mess. I don't want it to be crisp and clean. I don't need it to be that pristine anything. So look, I'm even using fuchsia today. Go me. I like the middle piece and what it's doing in the center. But the first thing that I did before I started painting was I did get my paper nice and wet. And in a watercolor book that I read a while ago, when you get a paper wet and then you tape it down, they call that stretching the paper. And so I'm not sure if that is helping with the lack of it being a watercolor paper or not. I have no clue. But I am going back through and trying to darken up some of the colors in the center and then lighten them out as I go. Now, the brush I'm using today is actually called a mop brush or a soft quill brush. It is entirely up to you. And it holds a ton of water. I don't hardly have to go back in and wet my brush because there is a ton of water in my brush as we speak. So another thing too is I forgot where my darker blue is, so it basically turned into slight purple because I just forgot which color it was. Again, this palette was very hard to work with because the dried out colors are very misleading compared to what they actually are. So I do have a little bit of it sticking out in that dish. I should have put a little bit more, to be honest, but I did not. So I'm going to just go ahead and splatter so that way my bursts look like they are really bursting out of that color. And then of course I also get the little speckles that I see in the painting. That's my inspiration. Okay, so here's where it looks dry. And then I flipped it over, and while it was wet, the backside looked fabulous. Now I don't really like it as much now because it's very lightened up and I can't really see the color as much as I thought I was going to, but I just wanted to share that with you guys, that the back side looked just as fabulous as the front side. Here I printed my photo of 3 different times with 2 different filters. The first photo over on the left was the original photo, all bright and washed out and pretty much you couldn't see anything. Then I used some sort of filter on Pick Tap Go. I don't remember exactly what filter it was. All I did was I went through all the filters to see which one brightened it up a little bit. And then this one here is actually called Auto Contrast. And so I actually had to use it twice. So what I did was I put the auto contrast on, saved it, brought it back in, put it on again, and I got this really deep dark photo. Granted, the water isn't as blue as I was hoping it would be, but my rainbow and clouds are fabulous. I love the lighting coming off of it. I'm not even upset about the water being almost pitch black. And then of course you can see that the rainbow is almost coming down right on top of that other cruise ship that was coming into port. We were already parked in port. I guess it's not called parked if you're on a boat, but we were already docked in port, and this cruise ship was coming in. And then also, if I made I made this into a square so that way it actually looked like a Polaroid, but it was a, what was that called? It was a landscape photo, and over on the right, even farther, there was another cruise ship closer to us that was heading, I think it was on the opposite side of the dock as what we were. So you could have saw that too, but I didn't want to share that. I really wanted to just focus on the rainbow, and it looks like it is right on top of that cruise ship. It's pretty cool. So vacuuming up all of my, fuzz left over from that domed, what was it called? Domed foam brush? Yeah, that's what it's called. I just inked the edges a black just in case I do not get this paper on my black cardstock fully squared up. And so if you ink the edges and you don't get it exactly lined up, then it doesn't really matter because the inked edges almost cover that up for you. So it's kind of a blessing if you ink the edges. And I just inked them in black to give it a little bit of a shadow. And I thought that the burst would look fabulous using just black and then just coming out of all of this color. I just really like the starkness of it. And then I had this leftover glitter paper from layout, 2 days ago? Yesterday? I have no idea. It was just leftover, and I thought, oh, that's perfect too, because I'm going to put the layout over on the greens because I didn't like that muddy green or that mossy green. So I was going to cover it up, and it worked out beautifully because the lighter moss I didn't mind, but the darker one I did. I also pulled out this, I don't remember what kind or who made this, this thicker set. I don't really remember exactly who they're from, so I do apologize. But I was just going to use the Shine On because I just thought that was fabulous. It was a great title for this particular layout. I am leaving it there. It's not fully adhered, so I just have it just resting on my layout and seeing if this is exactly where I want it to be. And then I brought out these flowers. They are from Pretty Little Studio. I believe they're from the Grateful Heart collection. I had a couple packs, you guys, because I do like the watercoloriness. I do like the colors that are in these flowers, and I like the little flowers because you have the light and the dark of the colors, so it's a variation, and so I do try to color match them, but I don't do a very good job because that's one thing that I need to work on. I just don't do a very good job. So I did save a little bit. This leaf that I scattered throughout was a pre-sprayed leaf that I had in my stash. I don't even remember where it came from. I think it came in a scrapbook kit with several other white leaves. They were called die cuts, but they were very like almost on copy paper. They were very thin die cuts. So I don't know if somebody hand die cut them through a crank machine, or if they were actually cut on on an electric machine. I have no idea because the paper that was used was super thin and textured, by the way. So pretty neat little pieces, but I didn't have very much left. I think I have this leaf and then a flower cluster left from that little set. So I'm going to go ahead and scatter out some of these leaves, or not leaves, but these flowers, but I'm going to add a little bit of leaves to them just to give them a little bit of something else instead of some random flowers hanging out. Trying to color match them, so put the same color leaf on the burst, but I had a whole lot more of the purple leaves than I did any other leaf. So I am going to take some white flowers. I have 2 white flowers and try to incorporate them as well, just so that way I can have a little bit more of the flowers going on. I don't have a lot of rainbowy-esque like images and die cuts and things. So I definitely didn't have sunshine and rainbows to put on this layout. So flowers were my next best thing. And they do tend to come in a lot more variation and allow me to work with the color bursts, right? So all right, I'm going to take one look again, and I decided that it needs a little bit more sparkle, a little bit more of the gold, because the title was the only thing that I had. And on this sticker sheet, I had little flowers, little hearts. And so I'm just going to go ahead and add 3 little hearts, and I feel like that helps spread that glitter throughout the layout, even though, and it's very sparkly glitter. Like, look at all that shine. So there is my layout and all my paintery mess. I know it looks like day one's, but this one was a little less controlled. It was a little bit more of a mess that I got to make. I absolutely love just making a mess and getting this blotchiness all over. I wished I would have planned it out a little bit more, so I had a little bit more of the yellow, peach, and reds going throughout. But then again, I kind of like the little sections because then I was able to cover up that, those greens and things. And yeah, I really like them. Again, I probably would have cut this out on the watercolor paper just so that way I could get a little bit more paintery on this and not pill up and whatnot. So anyways, don't forget to check out the link that I have down below for the playlist for 31 days of cut files, as well as Janet Fritz's channel, who is my partner in crime for 31 days. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really, truly appreciate it. And I will check you guys all later. Bye.